in the farthest reaches of the galaxy, where stars whisper secrets to the void, a peculiar species sent shockwaves through the interstellar community, not with weapons, but with rhythm. What began as curiosity would soon unravel into the most unexpected form of cultural upheaval the universe had ever known. This is the story of how music nearly triggered a diplomatic crisis and then saved the galaxy. You can't be serious. First speaker, Zorthal's primary sensory stalks, wobbled in disbelief, causing ripples across their iridescent membrane. An entire species that voluntarily subjects themselves to organized sonic warfare. Daily, I assure you, honored speaker junior researcher Lunveros shuffled their data crystals nervously, their bioluminescent patches pulsing with anxiety. Our findings are conclusive. The humans call it music, but our analysis shows it's clearly a sophisticated form of psychological conditioning. The Grand Council chamber of the Galactic Concordat hummed with nervous energy as the assembled representatives of 17 spacefaring civilizations processed this disturbing revelation. The massive crystalline dome above reflected the varied hues of their agitated bioluminescence, mostly shades of worried purple and anxious green. Perhaps, third speaker, Kale Sori's melodious voice cut through the murmuring, their feathered crest rising in scholarly interest. Junior researcher Lunveros could elaborate on these findings. After all, we've all reviewed the preliminary reports on humanity's recent application for Concordat membership. Lunveros's secondary hearts nearly seized up. They hadn't expected to be presenting to the full council today. Their supervisor, senior researcher Dren Salis, had called in sick with a bad case of membrane molt, leaving Lunveros to handle what should have been a routine update on humanity's application. Of course, honored speakers, Lunveros inserted the first data crystal into the chamber's holographic projector. As you know, our research team was tasked with analyzing human cultural practices for compatibility with Concordat standards. What we found was, well, just listen to this. The chamber filled with the opening notes of what humans called Bohemian Rhapsody. Multiple council members recoiled in shock. 2 crystalline representatives partially shattered. A gaseous member condensed in distress. Is this some form of torture? Second speaker Weth Kali demanded, their protective scales fully extended. No, honored speaker Lunveros replied, trying to keep their voice steady. This is what humans call classic rock. They consider this particular sonic assault to be one of their greatest cultural achievements. They listen to it for pleasure. Impossible, Zorthal declared. Those harmonic frequencies, the dramatic shifts in tempo and intensity, the emotional manipulation is obvious. This must be a weapon designed to destabilize neural patterns. Lunveros advanced to the next data crystal. That was just one genre. Humans have developed hundreds of distinct categories of these sonic weapons. They call them genres. Observe. The chamber was suddenly filled with a thunderous bass and aggressive vocals of death metal. Several council members immediately initiated emergency meditation protocols. By the first egg, Kale Sori's feathers were completely puffed out. They subject their young to this. Actually, Lunveros's bioluminescent patches flickered with dark humor. This style is particularly popular among their adolescents. They gather in large numbers to experience it collectively in designated sonic warfare arenas they call concerts. The council chamber erupted in chaos. Representatives were demanding immediate quarantine of the Sol system. Others called for a complete ban on human music in Concordat space. A few of the more militant members suggested preemptive strikes against major human concert venues. "Order." Zorthal's voice resonated through the chamber's perfect acoustics. "We must approach this scientifically. Junior researcher, what is the purpose of these sonic attacks? Surely they must serve some vital function in human society." Lunveros's patches shifted to a thoughtful blue. "That's the most fascinating part, honored speakers. Humans use these sonic patterns for everything. They have specific assault frequencies for romance, for exercise, for religious ceremonies, for relaxation, though I must note that what humans consider relaxing would qualify as moderate torture under Concordat law." "Are you suggesting?" Kyle Sori leaned forward, their feathers finally settling, "that humans have evolved some kind of resistance to sonic warfare?" "Not exactly, honored speaker. They appear to be actively seeking its effects. They use these patterns to intentionally alter their emotional and physical states. Many humans cannot even achieve optimal productivity without regular exposure to their preferred sonic patterns." "Productivity." Zorthal's sensory stalks straightened with sudden interest. "Elaborate." "Yes, honored speaker. Many humans report that they cannot efficiently complete tasks without accompanying sonic stimulation. They have developed specialized patterns for different activities: construction work, intellectual pursuits, physical training, even reproduction." A horrified silence fell over the chamber. "Are you saying," second speaker Wethkali's scales were clicking together rapidly, "that humans harness sonic warfare for motivation?" "Precisely." Lunveros's patches brightened with scientific excitement. "And that's not all. They've weaponized silence itself. They use the strategic absence of these sonic patterns as a form of social punishment. Being forced to work in what they call dead silence is considered cruel by many humans." First speaker Zorthal's sensory stalks were now writhing in complex patterns that suggested either deep thought or severe digestive distress. This complicates their membership applications significantly. A species that has evolved to depend on psychological warfare for basic functioning, the security implications alone. "If I may, honored speakers," Lunveros's patches shifted to a formal purple. "There's one more critical aspect of human sonic warfare you need to be aware of. They've weaponized it for interspecies use." The chamber grew so quiet, you could hear a scale drop. "What do you mean, exactly?" Kyle Sori asked, their feathers trembling slightly. Lunveros inserted the final data crystal. "Humans have developed sonic patterns specifically designed to influence other Earth species. They call it animal training. They use specialized frequencies to control the behavior of their companion animals, agricultural livestock, and even marine mammals. Some humans can even produce these control frequencies with their own vocal apparatus. They call it whistling." The implications hit the council like a gravitational wave. A species that had mastered sonic warfare to such a degree that they could influence the behavior of completely different biological forms, and they wanted to join the Concordat. "This requires extensive discussion," Zorthal announced. "Junior researcher Lunveros, you will prepare a complete report on human sonic warfare capabilities. We need to understand the full scope of this. They call it their music industry, honored speaker. Indeed, the full scope of their sonic warfare industrial complex. This council must determine if such a potentially devastating capability can be safely integrated into Concordat society." As the council members began their heated debate, Lunveros gathered their data crystals, their patches barely concealing their amusement. They hadn't even shown the council what humans called dubstep yet. That would have to wait for the next session. After all, you couldn't drop all the bass at once. 3 solar cycles later, junior researcher Lun Veros found themselves in what humans would call an awkward situation. Their thorough report on human sonic warfare capabilities had earned them an unexpected promotion and an even more unexpected assignment. Welcome to Sonic Defense Station Beta. Lieutenant Commander Tren Kor's crystalline appendages sparkled with military precision as they led Lun Veros through the newly constructed facility, the Council's first line of defense against human acoustic weapons. Lun Veros's bioluminescent patches flickered with barely suppressed mirth. The entire station was essentially a giant panic room built in response to their report. The walls were lined with every known form of soundproofing material in the galaxy. The staff wore what looked like modified pressure suits designed to filter out dangerous human frequencies. Impressive, Lun Veros managed, their secondary voice, Esak, quivering with contained laughter. And what exactly are we defending against? Everything. Tren Kor's crystal matrices vibrated with enthusiasm. We've identified at least 47 major categories of human sonic warfare. The most devastating appear to be something called pop music, and an ancient Earth weapon known as disco. They reached the station's main monitoring chamber, where dozens of analysts sat at terminals, wearing their protective suits and monitoring various waveform displays. Observe. Tren Kor gestured to a large central screen. We've intercepted this human transmission. Our analysts believe it's some kind of mass coordination signal. The screen displayed what Lun Veros recognized as a music video. Humans in colorful attire were performing synchronized movements while a catchy tune played. Ah, yes, Lun Veros nodded seriously. The humans call this choreography a sophisticated form of sonic kinetic conditioning. Exactly. Tren Kor's crystals chimed with validation. The humans use these broadcast patterns to program synchronized behavior in large populations. We've documented millions of humans performing identical movement sequences in response to these signals. Lun Veros thought about explaining the concept of TikTok dances, but decided against it. Some things were perhaps too terrifying for the Concordat to handle just yet. But that's not the worst of it, Tren Kor continued, leading them to another section. We've discovered that humans have developed a form of sonic warfare so potent that it can infiltrate neural patterns and remain active for extended periods. They call these earworms. Fascinating, Lun Veros said, wondering how to explain the baby shark phenomenon without causing a diplomatic incident. And have you developed any countermeasures? Of course. Tren Kor pressed a button, and a section of wall slid away to reveal what looked like a meditation chamber. We call it the Sonic Purification Pod. Any Concordat citizen exposed to human music can undergo immediate decontamination. Inside the pod was a being Lun Veros recognized as a wavelength harmonizer from the southern spiral arm. They were currently attempting to purge what appeared to be Sweet Caroline from their neural patterns. Bam bam ba bum, the harmonizer suddenly burst out, then looked mortified. You see, Tren Kor's crystals darkened with concern. The infection can persist for days. We've had cases where exposed individuals suddenly start generating these patterns spontaneously. They call it singing. Lun Veros watched as the harmonizer was led away for additional treatment, still mumbling, "Good times never seemed so good," under their breath. But surely, Lun Veros ventured, not all human sonic patterns are weapons. Our research suggests some have beneficial effects. Propaganda, Tren Kor declared. We intercepted this transmission clearly designed to lower defensive capabilities. Listen, the chamber filled with the gentle sounds of classical piano. This pattern, Tren Kor explained, reportedly induces a state of relaxation and peaceful contemplation, obviously a preparatory tactic for their more aggressive sonic assaults. 3 analysts in the corner had already dozed off, their protective suits softly beeping an alarm. We've also discovered that humans are capable of combining multiple sonic warfare techniques simultaneously. Trencor pulled up another display. They call these mashups. The psychological impact is considerable. The screen showed a complex waveform analysis of what Lunveros recognized as All-Star by Smash Mouth, combined with Never Gonna Give You Up. The most disturbing part, Trencor continued, their crystals vibrating with anxiety, is how they've weaponized their sonic patterns for commercial purposes. They use short, highly concentrated bursts called jingles to implant consumption directives directly into neural pathways. Lunveros made a mental note to never explain advertising jingles to the Concordat. The resulting panic might destabilize the entire galactic economy. But nothing. Trencor's voice dropped to a horrified whisper. Nothing prepared us for their ultimate weapon. They led Lunveros to a heavily secured chamber marked maximum containment. We discovered this purely by accident. A routine scan of human transmissions detected a pattern so insidious, so perfectly engineered for neural infiltration, that exposure for even a few seconds can lead to permanent neural alteration. What is it? Lunveros asked, genuinely curious now. Trencor's crystals paled. They call it Baby Shark. Before Lunveros could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Red lights flashed as panic spread through the monitoring chamber. Containment breach, a synthetic voice announced. Sonic contamination detected in sectors 7 through 12. What's happening? Lunveros demanded as staff members rushed past in various states of distress. It's impossible. Trencor's crystals were practically vibrating apart. Someone accessed the human entertainment database called Spotify through an unshielded terminal. The infection is spreading through the station's communication system. The speakers crackled to life, and the opening notes of Uptown Funk began playing through every channel. Don't believe me. Just watch, several analysts shouted in unison before being rushed to decontamination as chaos erupted around them, with staff members either dancing involuntarily or rushing for sonic protection. Lunveros's patches rippled with barely contained amusement. Perhaps it was time to introduce the Concordat to the concept of getting down with their bad selves. But that would have to wait. Right now, they had to figure out how to explain to the Council that their brand new sonic defense station had just been compromised by Bruno Mars. The investigation into human sonic warfare capabilities was clearly far from over. And somewhere on Earth, millions of humans were going about their daily lives, completely unaware that their Spotify playlists had just been classified as weapons of mass disruption. Ambassador Talia Wren was having what she would diplomatically term a challenging day. Currently, she was sitting in an isolation chamber aboard the Concordat diplomatic vessel Harmonious Discourse, watching through a transparent barrier as alien officials in protective suits argued about proper decontamination protocols. "I assure you," she said, for what felt like the 1,000th time, "humming Sweet Dreams Are Made of This does not constitute a hostile action." First speaker Zorthal's sensory stalks writhed in obvious distress. "Talia Wren, you were observed generating unauthorized sonic patterns in the Council's private meditation garden. 3 crystalline representatives partially liquefied. I was just happy." Helena sighed. "Humans sometimes express joy through music." "Aha!" Junior researcher Lunveros's patches flashed triumphantly from the observation deck. "Emotional manipulation confirmed. The human admits to weaponizing sonic frequencies for mood alteration. Helena shot them a look that could have melted neutron stars. She'd read Lunveros's infamous report on human music, all 2,437 pages of it. Somehow the junior researcher had turned humanity's entire musical history into the galaxy's most comprehensive misunderstanding. Perhaps, third speaker Missouri Laundry suggested, their feathers slightly less puffed than usual. The ambassador would be willing to explain the strategic purpose of this particular sonic assault. For the record, a hollow recording played back Helena's garden performance, "Sweet dreams are made of these." Who am I to disagree? It's just a song about... Actually, I'm not entirely sure what it's about, Helena admitted, but I promise you, it's not a weapon. Not sure? Zorthal's stalks froze in horror. You mean humans deploy these sonic patterns without knowing their full effects? The observation chamber erupted in panic. Several officials began emergency meditation exercises. Someone initiated the station's sonic purification protocols, filling the air with what sounded like space whale songs being played backward through a kazoo. Okay, everybody calm down. Helena stood up, her patience finally snapping. Unfortunately, she did so while unconsciously tapping her foot to the rhythm of the purification sounds. Kinetic assault posture detected, someone screamed. The observation deck dissolved into chaos. This is ridiculous, Helena muttered, watching as a gaseous member tried to evacuate through a ventilation shaft while humming "Sweet Dreams" in perfect pitch. I need to contact Earth about this mess. No communications. Zorthal's voice cut through the chaos. We cannot risk exposure to more human sonic warfare frequencies. You mean music? We need music to communicate now? Lunveros's patches strobed excitedly. The human reveals their species' dependency on sonic warfare for basic communication protocols. Helena slumped back in her isolation chair. She'd spent years studying xenodiplomacy, learning 17 alien languages, mastering interstellar protocol, and now her entire career might be derailed because she couldn't stop herself from humming Annie Lennox. Ambassador Kale Sori approached the barrier, their feathers now only slightly ruffled. Perhaps we could reach a compromise. If you could explain your species' sonic warfare protocols in a non-threatening manner. For the last time, it's not warfare. Music is, it's... Helena paused, suddenly struck by an idea. Actually, why don't I show you? Absolutely not. Zorthal's stalks tied themselves in knots. The risk of mass sonic contamination. No, hear me out. Helena raised her hand placatingly. What if I could demonstrate that human music, sonic patterns, can actually promote diplomatic harmony? There was a long pause as the council members communicated through subtle shifts in bioluminescence, feather arrangements, and crystal resonance. Proceed, Zorthal finally said, but at the first sign of aggressive frequencies. Trust me, Helena smiled, reaching for her personal tablet. I know exactly what to play. 20 minutes later, the isolation chamber speakers were softly playing "What a Wonderful World" by Louis Armstrong. Helena watched with growing amusement as the assembled alien dignitaries tried to maintain their panic while their bodies unconsciously relaxed. Observe, she narrated. No neural manipulation, no aggressive frequencies, just harmony. The resonance patterns are surprisingly pleasant, Kale Sori admitted, their feathers swaying gently to the rhythm. Fascinating. Lunveros's patches had shifted to a peaceful blue. The human sonic pattern appears to be inducing synchronized calm across multiple species. That's kind of the point, Helena explained. music are sonic patterns. They're not weapons. They're a form of universal communication, a way to share emotions and experiences across barriers. But what about the aggressive patterns? Zorthal demanded, though their stalks were now swaying peacefully. The death metal and dubstep. Different emotions, different experiences. Helena shrugged. Sometimes you want to feel peaceful. Sometimes you want to feel energetic. And the synchronized movement protocols. The dancing. That's just joy, pure and simple. The council members exchanged glances. Several of them had started to unconsciously bob their various appendages to the gentle rhythm. Perhaps, Missouri Laundry suggested, their feathers now fully relaxed. We should reconsider our classification of human sonic patterns. Agreed. Zorthal's stalks unwound themselves. Talia Wren, would you be willing to provide a more comprehensive demonstration of human musical diversity? For scientific purposes, of course. Helena grinned. I thought you'd never ask. Let me introduce you to something we call jazz. As the opening notes of Take 5 filled the chamber, Helena watched with satisfaction as the assembled aliens began to unconsciously groove to the rhythm. Even Lunveros's patches were pulsing in perfect time to the beat. Maybe, just maybe, music really was the universal language after all, though she did make a mental note to save Bohemian Rhapsody for when they were a bit more prepared. Some things you had to work up to gradually. The incident that would later be known as the Great Galactic Groove began, like many revolutionary moments in history, entirely by accident. 6 solar cycles after Talia Wren's jazz demonstration, first speaker Zorthal made a startling discovery in their personal logs. They were humming, not just any sonic pattern, but something humans called "Fly Me to the Moon." Worse still, they were enjoying it. This is most irregular, Zorthal muttered to their reflection, watching their sensory stalks sway to the remembered melody. Most irregular indeed. But Zorthal wasn't alone. Across concordate space, something extraordinary was happening. The careful introduction of human music into diplomatic channels had sparked what Lunveros's latest report termed a pandemic of harmony. At the Crystalline Embassy, representatives had discovered that certain human frequencies could induce pleasurable resonance patterns in their matrices. Mozart, as it turned out, could make a crystalline being sparkle in ways their poets had only dreamed of. The gaseous members had become particularly fond of something called ambient electronica, claiming it enhanced their natural diffusion patterns. Several had been caught attempting to sneak into human raves while disguised as fog machines, but nothing could compare to what was happening at Sonic Defense Station Beta. Lieutenant Commander, Lunveros's patches flickered with poorly concealed amusement. Would you care to explain this? This was the site of the entire station's night shift crew participating in what humans called a dance party. Lieutenant Commander Trencor's crystals were flashing in perfect sync with the beat of Dancing Queen, while analysts in their protective suits attempted to master something called the hustle. Research, Trencor declared, their crystals briefly forming a disco ball pattern. We must understand the enemy's sonic patterns to defend against them. By learning the electric slide. It's a very complex tactical maneuver. The situation reached critical mass during the annual Concordat Cultural Exchange Festival, traditionally a state affair featuring philosophical debates and ceremonial color shifting. This year's event took an unexpected turn when someone, all evidence pointed to Talia Wren, connected their personal device to the main amphitheater's sound system. The first notes of September by Earth, Wind and Fire changed galactic history forever. Do you remember? The speakers asked. And as it turned out, the assembled representatives of 17 spacefaring civilizations very much did. Kaelsori's species, it was discovered, could achieve previously unknown heights of feather coordination when properly motivated by funk. The crystalline beings found they could refract light in spectacular ways during the chorus. Even the gaseous members got into the spirit, forming themselves into surprisingly accurate cloud-based dance moves. "This is unprecedented," Zorthal declared, their stalks moving in what was absolutely not a boogie. "The sonic patterns are inducing cross-species synchronized behavior." "Yes," Lunveros agreed, their patches strobing in rainbow patterns. "That's called getting down first speaker." In the midst of it all, Talia Wren sat back and watched her plan unfold. The carefully curated playlist moved from earth, wind, and fire to a diplomatic selection of global rhythms. Korean pop followed Nigerian, highlife followed Indian, classical followed Brazilian, bossa nova. "You planned this," Lunveros accused, their patches now pulsing in time to a particularly infectious K-pop beat. "I have no idea what you're talking about." Helena smiled innocently. "I'm just here to observe this spontaneous cultural exchange. The Council will have opinions about this breach of sonic warfare protocols, will they? Because I'm pretty sure I just saw third speaker Kaelsori attempting to break dance." Indeed, Kaelsori's feathers had proved surprisingly well-suited to power moves. Their species would later develop an entire philosophical doctrine around the ways of the b-boy. The festival lasted 3 days longer than scheduled, somewhere around hour 47. During a particularly energetic rendition of "We Will Rock You," someone suggested that perhaps human music should be reclassified as a cultural treasure rather than a weapon of mass disruption. The motion passed unanimously, though there was some debate about whether dubstep should remain classified as a controlled substance. New professions emerged overnight. Rhythm consultants began offering their services to species wanting to develop their own musical traditions. The crystalline beings discovered they could create hauntingly beautiful melodies by precisely arranged resonance patterns. Gaseous members found they had a natural talent for wind instruments. Even the sonic defense station was repurposed. Under Jix Ara's enthusiastic leadership, it became the Concordat's first interstellar dance academy. The protective suits were redesigned as groove enhancers, complete with built-in light shows. "I trust you're satisfied with the outcome, Zorthal." Helena, during a quiet moment between songs. Their stalks were still slightly swaying to the lingering rhythm of staying alive. "It's a start," she grinned. "Just wait until they discover karaoke." Zorthal's stalks froze. "Kara, what?" "Oh, nothing," Helena said innocently. "Just another human tradition of sonic harmony. I'm sure it won't cause any diplomatic incidents at all." Lunveros, overhearing this exchange, made a mental note to update their report. Clearly, they had only scratched the surface of humanity's sonic influence on galactic culture. But that could wait. Right now, someone was playing "Don't Stop Believin'," and their patches really wanted to strobe along with the chorus. After all, as humans would say. Resistance was futile when the beat dropped. One standard galactic year after the Great Galactic Groove, the Concordat faced an unprecedented crisis. They'd run out of Earth music to discover. "What do you mean, there's more?" First speaker Zorthal stalks twisted in disbelief during an emergency council session. "We've analyzed over 12 million distinct sonic patterns already. Humans," Ambassador Wren explained patiently, "have been making music for thousands of years across hundreds of cultures, and they're creating new music every day." The council chamber, recently retrofitted with a state-of-the-art sound system, for diplomatic purposes, of course, erupted in excited murmurs. "But that's not even the best part," Helena continued, fighting to keep a straight face. "Have you heard about karaoke?" The word spread through the chamber like a shockwave. Third speaker. Kyle Sori's feathers instantly puffed up in anticipation. Karaoke. Lunveros's patches spelled out the word in pulsing letters. Their latest position as Chief Cultural Exchange Officer had made them somewhat theatrical. From Earth Japanese Empty Orchestra, a sonic ritual where participants, they paused dramatically, perform the patterns themselves. The resulting chaos made the original music panic look like a minor diplomatic hiccup. The idea that individuals could generate their own versions of these beloved sonic patterns, unthinkable, revolutionary, potentially catastrophic. "We must study this phenomenon immediately," Zorthal declared, "for scientific purposes, of course." And that's how 3 days later, the first intergalactic karaoke championship was hastily organized. The event was held in the converted Sonic Defense Station, now officially renamed Studio 54 Beta. Lieutenant Commander Jixara, sporting crystal formations carefully styled to resemble a 1970s disco suit, served as master of ceremonies. Welcome beings of all wavelengths. Their crystals sparkled with excitement. "Tonight, we make history." The competition that followed would be talked about for generations. The crystalline delegation performed a hauntingly beautiful rendition of "Sweet Child O' Mine," their matrices vibrating in perfect harmony to create both instrumental and vocal parts simultaneously. The gaseous members, after some initial confusion about holding microphones, delivered a surprisingly moving version of "Wind Beneath My Wings." Their natural ability to diffuse throughout the performance space created impressive special effects. Kyle Sori's species discovered they had a particular talent for rap, their elaborate feather displays adding a unique visual element to their performance of rapper's delight. The fact that they could manipulate multiple feathers independently meant they could effectively be their own backup dancers. Even Zorthal participated, their sensory stalks moving in surprisingly smooth waves as they attempted "Can't Help Falling in Love." Several audience members claimed to have experienced unprecedented levels of emotional resonance, though this was later blamed on the punch being spiked with synthesized endorphins. But the real breakthrough came during the open mic session. A young crystalline being, their matrices still showing signs of adolescent irregularity, took the stage and began performing something new. It wasn't quite human music, wasn't quite traditional crystalline resonance. It was something else entirely, a fusion of cultural elements that shouldn't have worked, but somehow did. The audience fell silent, except for a few gaseous members who couldn't help but whoosh appreciatively. What is this pattern classified as?" Zorthal demanded, their stalks quivering with emotion. "That," Helena smiled, "is called innovation." More performers followed, each bringing their own unique biological and cultural elements to human musical foundations. Gaseous harmonies, intertwined with earth blues progressions, crystalline resonance patterns, merged with hip-hop beats. Kyle Sori's species developed entirely new feather-based instrumental techniques. "They're not just replicating our music," Helena explained to an awestruck council. "They're building on it, creating something new. But our sonic warfare classification protocols," Lunveros's patches flickered in confusion. "Perhaps," Zorthal suggested, their stalks swaying to the current performer's unique blend of jazz and quantum harmonics. It's time to create a new classification entirely. The motion to establish the Department of Intergalactic Artistic Development passed unanimously. Its first act was to officially recognize xenomusic as a legitimate art form. Studios sprang up across Concordat space. Cross-species bands formed and disbanded with dramatic flair. Music critics evolved from 17 different traditions, somehow managing to agree only on their disdain for whatever was currently popular. The first major xenomusic hit came from a supergroup called the Multiverse Wavelength, featuring members from 6 different species. Their song, "Stardust in Your Matrix, Baby, You're So Fine," topped the charts for 12 cycles, though purists argued it was too commercial. Earth's application for Concordat membership was fast-tracked, with their musical heritage cited as an invaluable contribution to galactic culture. Though some argued this set a dangerous precedent for evaluating civilizations based on their groove factor. And somewhere in the bureaucratic archives, Lunveros's original report on human sonic warfare remained filed under historical misunderstandings, a case study in cultural attribution error. Though it was noted that certain human musical genres, death metal, hardcore, dubstep, and anything involving bagpipes, remained classified as potentially diplomatically disruptive. One cycle later, during the inauguration of the first Intergalactic Conservatory of Musical Arts, Ambassador Wren found herself sharing a quiet moment with Zor Thal. "Did you plan this?" they asked, their stalks moving gently to the sound of a crystalline human jazz fusion quartet. "Was this your intention all along?" Helena just smiled and hummed a few bars of What a Wonderful World. Zor Thal's stalks twirled in amusement. "You realize the next logical step is intergalactic musical theater. One thing at a time," Helena laughed. "Let's make sure everyone masters the time warp first." As if on cue, the familiar opening notes began playing through the conservatory's sound system. Across the hall, beings of all species began arranging themselves in lines, ready to jump to the left and step to the right. It was just a jump to the left after all, and the rest, as they say, was history, or as the Concordat Historical Archives would later record it, the great musical misunderstanding that brought harmony to the galaxy. Though they did still keep Sonic Defense Station Gamma on standby, just in case anyone ever discovered Earth country music. Some things the galaxy just wasn't ready for yet.